And check out our retirement income program, Sunday mornings at 9.
Are you ready to embark on a journey towards taking control of your health and well-being? I'm Candy Brothel, host of Green Tea Conversations. Join me every Sunday at 10 a.m. as I sit down with the local experts who are bridging the gap between mainstream medicine and complementary therapies. Each week, we explore topics in integrative medicine, nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. So grab a cup of tea and join the conversation as we awaken to natural health. Visit us at naturaltwincities.com.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Clear tonight with a low of 58, then more sunshine Tuesday with a high of 83. Fill the hot summer nights with the hottest music in the Twin Cities at Crooner Supper Club in Fridley. Crooners is located just north of I-694 off Highway 65. View their schedules and food menus at croonersloungemn.com. Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story. This is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun, and thank you very much for joining me tonight. Happy Monday. Wow, we made it through the weekend, didn't we? And I swear just about everybody who I know in the paranormal was out east over at the Gettysburg Bash over this last weekend. And I was supposed to be there, and I had to back out at the last minute. I actually was going to speak last weekend, but I wasn't able to. I wasn't able to go. And but it looked like it was a lot of fun. But what I was able to do, and those of you who've been listening all last week, was very well aware of the fact that we had our own event going on at if I could say it, historic Grant House. I'm so excited about it, I can't even say it. We had quite the turnout. I was very impressed. I was very happy on behalf, if I may, of Char Savoy, who put on this event along with me, and Becky Shaw, who did all the work over at the Grant House, and everybody who was able to go. I really thank you so much. And we made a little bit of money for Mr. John Yost, who we wanted to make sure that we donated all of our proceeds to him with his pancreatic cancer treatment. We were able to send a few $100 his way. And we were really excited about that. And we sold out the place. That place was packed. So thank you all very much. You know, I'm going to be honest. If you all would like to see more of that kind of thing, just send me a note over at comment@ghostboxradio.com. Once again, that's comment@ghostboxradio.com. Well, you know, it's time to get going on things here. We got a lot. We have a big week coming up, and we're going to start off very strong, as there's a book that just came out. I believe it came out in June. And I think that a book like this has been needed for a very long time. And I want to bring on the author of it. Alex Matsuo is a paranormal researcher, author, and social media influencer. She is the founder of the Association of Paranormal Study and runs the Spooky Stuff. If it's weird, spooky, unusual, scary, macabre, or haunted, she wants to write and talk about it. Alex was recently seen on the first season of The Paranormal Revenge on Travel Channel, Most Haunted Places in the World on Tubi, and the third season of Haunted Hospitals in episode 12, titled It Followed Me Home. She was also been seen on Travel Channel's Most Terrifying Places in America. Alex has written several books about the paranormal, including Women of the Paranormal Vol.1, A Brief History, which we'll be talking about today, The Hamptonville Hauntings, Ghosts of the Trevette Clinic, One Bed Over, A Hospital Haunting, The Brave Mortal's Guide to Ghost Hunting, and The Haunted Actor. Alex currently resides in Arlington, Virginia. She has been featured on KPBS, San Diego, Fox News, and The Washington Post for various endeavors. Alex, welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Hey, Greg, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well. It's been so long since you and I have spoken.
It has been. It's been a few years, I think, now.
It really has been. I've been following everything you've been doing. I mean, I've been watching. I mean, it sounds creepy. I get it. But I really have been following along and stuff and really been enjoying your successes. And I think that it's been really cool. Were you at Gettysburg Bash this last weekend?
No, I was actually almost on the other side of the East Coast. I was down in North Carolina for an event called Congregate. It's a sci-fi geek fantasy convention.
That's right. Okay, so you were the only other person that didn't go to Gettysburg Bash. I'm
pretty much the only other one. Everyone else was there.
Now, I'd like to invite all of our listeners to join into the conversation. You can do so. We're not taking calls tonight, but if you are able to watch us on any streaming, we're streaming on AM 950 Radio, Facebook page, GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, Facebook page, Things Network. Leave a comment for us. I will see it. We can put it up there. We can talk about it. With Alex, we are talking tonight about Women of the Paranormal Vol.1, A Brief History. Before we went on the air, Alex, I did say that I thought that this book, in general, I think is long overdue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is something that I've heard quite often since I even just teased that I was writing it.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, it started as like just a personal research project, and then it was going to be a blog series. And I was browsing my local library, and I saw that there were these. I was in the women's history section, and I saw that there were anthologies of different women in history, like bunched together, like 12, 13, 15, 20. And I don't know, it just kind of dawned on me we don't have this for women of the paranormal. Like, maybe this is something I could combine and put together into one volume, and then that way people can easily find it in a book, and they don't have to like use Google or search my blog and go to multiple areas of the internet or at the library. They can just find it all in one place.
When just looking at just even the acknowledgments, just the acknowledgement page, and there is so much that had to go into writing this. I mean, it was, you're talking about the Library of Congress. You're talking about people that could help you with, from the way I read it, the people that could help you with certain other people that you feature in the book who have passed or it's past their time. I mean, when you're, even if at the time, if you're doing this as a blog series, would it have been that much research gone into it?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I think there's a level of responsibility that has to go into when you're writing and putting it in a book as opposed to a blog.
Yeah.
Because with a blog, it's really easy to, just do a high level overview, or just do some links of like, if you want to learn more, go here, and it also depends on the audience too. And a lot of people who read blogs, they may not be looking for something really dense. They may just want that high level overview. So when I decided to move everything into a book, it just, the weight of responsibility got quite a bit heavier with, okay, I really need to check my sources, and I really need to make sure that I'm doing these women right. Especially, I mean, granted, it's self-published, so if I ever need to go back and make edits, I can, and any previous copies will be misfit copies and maybe
right.
I don't know. But yeah, there's the weight of responsibility for accuracy and transparency and authenticity. I think that weight gets a bit heavier when you decide to put it on paper and stick it on a bookshelf. So I really went forwards and backwards and talked to people. I had beta readers. I had historians looking at this book. I had my sources looking at this book too, of like, hey, I cited your work in this. And I also wanted to make sure that, the people I referenced felt like that I was giving them the proper credit too, because I'm very passionate about making sure people are properly credited for their work. It was an interesting journey.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm so happy to hear that. As one who has gone through a master's program, writing my own capstone, my own thesis, you go through the internet, you go even through self-published books, and you find that that when it's missing, when the sources are missing, and I totally get where you're coming from. That is really important to get right. I mean, let alone the fact that that's what separates professionals from the amateurs anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there were other sources that I looked at where I kind of sat back. I'm like, where did you get that? And then I end up finding the source that they used, but they didn't acknowledge them. And I'm like, well, that's unfortunate, especially since the way that this book is formatted is I'm not trying to repurpose any full-length autobiographies. I mean, several of the women in the book have multiple books written about them. Sure. And I'm not trying to repurpose that, but more of like a high-level overview and introduction. But, like with the Catherine Crowe chapter, I talk about how I leveraged the University of Kent and their archives.
Yeah.
And I made sure to name that in case if someone wants to do a deeper dive into, or even look at the documents themselves, they can contact the University of Kent to make a research appointment. It could be remote or it can be in person. So it's like this, almost like this choose your own adventure with each chapter, where if you want to do a deeper dive, all my sources are there that you can go and have a wonderful time.
That's fantastic. Now, speaking of deeper dive, what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of a break right now. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Alex Matsuo about our book, the Women in Paranormal Brief History. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
Would you let animals pick your insurance? Do you really need to experience mayhem to get the best rates? Or how about a celebrity quarterback or fake university saving you money? There's a lot of marketing stunts when it comes to insurance, but what you really need is someone looking out for you. Call Array Insurance, and they will work hard to find you the best insurance coverage and rates. So avoid gimmicks and call Cheryl at Array, 763-504-3067, or arrayinsurance.com. Array Insurance, working hard for you.
Cafe Latte offers made-from-scratch soups, salads, sandwiches, and mouth-watering desserts. So come check out their pizza and wine bar, or get a treat from the bakery made fresh daily. Plus, you can still do online ordering and takeout, along with gift cards. Just go to cafelatte.com and choose from their ever-changing selection of award-winning salads, sandwiches, and soups. Cafe Latte is located off Victoria and Grand and online at cafelatte.com.
Hey, it's Patrick for Zero Res. We're heading into July and the heart of summer. The backyard barbecues over Independence Day will bring a lot of family and friends over to the house, and your kids will spend a lot of time outdoors on the sports fields and in the backyard. But that also means your guests are going to be spilling the potato salad, and your kids are going to be tracking in who knows what from their outdoor explorations or off the sports fields. July is National Carpet Cleaning Month, and because of that, check out this amazing deal Zero Res has going. Zero Res is offering 3 rooms starting at just $129 and get a 4th room free. It's also the perfect time of year to get your air ducts cleaned this month and take 20% off any air duct cleaning. Call 952-ZERO-RES or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com and ask for the AM 950 special. Again, don't wait. Book your appointment today. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
Hey, it's Tom. Going solar is a great way to save on energy costs. By using the sun to power your house, you can feel good about an investment that will last for years. All Energy Solar is a locally trusted turnkey solar installer that's been around since 2009. They provide custom designs and quality installations of solar panel systems that work for your energy needs. One of the best parts about going solar is it's an investment that can pay for itself. Your system can pay back 100% of the installation cost in as little as 8 years. Plus, a system from All Energy Solar can pay back over 300% of its cost over its lifetime. There's also many tax incentives and rebates available, and the experts at All Energy Solar can walk you through the entire process to make sure you're saving as much as possible. So go green, both financially and environmentally, with All Energy Solar. Get a free, no-obligation assessment from All Energy Solar by calling 800-620-3370 or visiting allenergysolar.com.
And it's that time of the week again where we introduce the question of the week, a new one from last week. And the question is, for those who care to answer, do you believe aliens are actively working with the United States government? Is it? You know, I don't think there's a wrong answer. If you would like to take part in the question of the week, send us an answer over at comment@ghostboxradio.com. That's comment@ghostboxradio.com. You could also put it into the chat if you so desire, or whatever you want to do. We're just curious, and we'll read it on one of the shows coming up, and we'll decide whether, what the consensus is amongst our audience. If we actually think, once again, do you believe aliens are actively working with the United States government? That's our question of the week. And let us know what you think about that. Welcome back to GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, and it's Monday, and I am so happy that we have Alex Matsuo in with Women of the Paranormal Vol.1, A Brief History. Just has been published, in June, hasn't it, Alex?
Yep, it was early June, about the second weekend, yeah.
Wow. How's it doing? How's the book doing so far?
It's doing pretty well. It's doing better than I expected, and actually a lot of the book sales I'm getting is actually through my Etsy shop for people to get signed copies. I'm pleasantly surprised with that. And then I was at Troy Taylor's Haunted America about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I actually sold out of the book by noon on day 2, and I was like, oh well. So
that's great.
Didn't bring enough copies, which is a nice problem to have.
It is a nice problem. And Troy, I've only read one of his books, and I've absolutely loved it. So I'm hoping to get him on here at some point too. Now, as I'm looking through, first of all, this is volume 1. You have a number of women that you are covering in this volume. When you sat down and decided that you're doing this, I guess, series of books, do you know how many volumes you're doing?
Right now, I have enough women to do 3 volumes total. But that's who's to say that I won't run into more as I'm doing research on these other women. I started off with 12 for volume 1, and volume 1 has 38. And the reason why that's a weird number is because I couldn't decide. I couldn't figure out who exactly to put on the chopping block for volume 2. And I talked to my editor, and she was like, you know what, just put them all in. It's your book. Who's making the rules? And I'm like, okay, I'll just do that. So, but I have about 60 more that are waiting in the wings.
How did you get to the point of breaking them down, and who gets in, who doesn't get in, where you fit them into the series of books?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. So for when it came to the decision of who to cut or who to keep for volume 2 or 3, there was a variety of factors were considered. One was, how much information can I get access to right now that would fit within the schedule? Because I had a goal of having Women of the Paranormal out by the Haunted America conference at the end of June. Mm-hmm. So timing was a factor, but also a lot of it was, okay, where would their stories fit within each other? When you read volume 1, you'll probably notice that names will pop up later. So like Helena Blavatsky or, Violet Tweeddale, or Catherine Crowe, like there's, everyone sort of has these connections with each other. Thelma Moss, where they either worked together or they were debunking each other, or they had grandparents or spouses that worked with them. So they're all kind of connected in some sort of way. And then and then there was others where I'm like, okay, this person's interesting. I can't find a lot right now, but I think I can find more. So I'm just going to have them wait for a moment. Or if another one was, okay, I have a lot of mediums. I need to move some of the mediums over, things like that. Because I didn't want the book to be all about mediums. So I moved a lot of the mediums over to volume 2. And I'm hoping for volume 2, I can at least integrate more cryptozoologists and ufologists. So going into more diverse categories than just, ghosts and hauntings.
Yeah, and I mean that makes a lot of sense. I get the idea of it kind of flowing and working together and stuff. And how many of these women did you know about when you put the book together? I mean, I know that you know a lot about a lot of things, a lot of people, but were there some that weren't on your radar until you started doing the research?
Oh, I would say there was about a good 25 that were not on my radar.
Okay.
Yeah, good 25. Because I started off with 12. That was like, okay, I know these women. I can write about them. And then as I was doing research on these women, I would run into more names. I'm like, oh, who's that? And then I would do a deeper dive. And the Library of Congress was actually my big breakthrough with finding more women, because I had access to their archives, and even their just off the shelf selection in their main reading room was very robust, like more robust than I expected. And that wasn't even going through the card catalog. And so I would go through the card catalog and I put in some requests, and I made my research appointment, and I requested like 5 books, and when I got there, the librarians handed me like 12 books, and they're like, "Oh, hey, we found all this stuff for you, and this was a really interesting project. Thanks for including us." And and as I'm reading, I'm like, "Oh, wow, okay, this." I'm gonna write this one down.
And we're having a great conversation with Alex Matsuo. We're talking about her latest book, Women of the Paranormal Vol.1, A Brief History. Were you finding like same names popping up with different researchers that may have prompted you to add them to your list, or was that not necessarily the case?
It depended on who it was. Leonora Piper was one that popped up a lot. Gladys Osborne Leonard popped up a lot. These are 2 mediums, but also Louisa Rhine, Eleanor Sidgwick. Those were those names are popping up often. But then I would find some really unique ones that I thought, okay, I need to get them out right away because this is incredible. And the main one I'm thinking of is Radcliffe Hall and Una Trowbridge. That was a delightful discovery for me. And as soon as I found them, I kind of became obsessed. I was like, okay, I got to learn as much about them as I could.
You got to love that though, right? I mean, that's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was Una Trowbridge's name that I saw first. And then when I looked up Radcliffe Hall, I was like, oh, wait a minute. So I was like, okay. And I had no idea. I mean, I knew of Radcliffe Hall because of Well of Loneliness, the book that she wrote. And so the name looked familiar, and I was like, is that the same Radcliffe Hall? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it is the same Radcliffe Hall. So things like that would happen. Thelma Moss was another one. Dr. Shafika Karagula, who was actually George Norrie's aunt. That was one I didn't know. And then I find myself reading one of George Norrie's books, and he's talking about his aunt Shafika, and I'm like, oh wait, okay.
You're like, hold on.
Hang on a minute.
Those are great. Those are great, like serendipitous discoveries, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally. And I'm pretty sure I may have read that book like maybe 15 years ago, but the light bulb didn't turn on. Because our internet archive was my best friend in this too. And when I looked up her name, George Norrie's book came up, and I didn't realize how instrumental she was in how he ended up where he is today. So I'm like, okay, so she definitely needs a mention in the book. So it was just really cool to find these names and find that they had connections, or they had like male contemporaries who were doing the kind of the same thing at the same time.
That is great. Why don't we do this? Let's take another break. When we come back, I want to talk to Alex also more about the book, but also about the writing process, because this is really interesting, and she's done enough of these books. I'm sure she has a lot to say on it. We're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
Hi, this is Chad from AM 950. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed roofing, siding, window, and insulation contractor in the metro. Ryan is so excited about working with AM 950 and our listeners that he wants to help us grow.
This is Ryan, owner of Snap Construction. I was friends with Chad long before I started marketing with him. I was a bit skeptical of radio advertising before Chad convinced us to run ads. The advertising's been so successful, we want to help the station grow. We've absolutely loved working with the listeners of AM 950, and we all know how extremely important this radio station is to the community. To help AM 950 grow, Snap Construction will be putting up proceeds to assist the station in marketing on social media. Snap Construction encourages you to follow, engage, share, and interact on the AM 950 social media platforms. Together, we can all work to ensure AM 950 continues to thrive and grow in our communities. We stand by our work with a lifetime craftsmanship guarantee. For a free estimate or more information on our financing, call 612-333-SNAP or check us out online.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. Even though Auto Technical is a small nonprofit, we have helped more families with transportation than any organization in Minnesota. Since '94, we have reconditioned donated vehicles so they have a higher tax benefit. Call Richard at 612-919-5526, 612-919-5526, or autotech.org.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces is having their annual sale for the entire month of July. All of their indoor and outdoor fireplace products and accessories are at the lowest price of the year.
Did you know that now there's also a 30% federal tax credit when you install an efficient wood heating stove or fireplace? At Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, we can explain and show you the many options. We have the Twin Cities' widest selection of wood-burning stoves and fireplaces.
I love my wood stove. We enjoy the sense of well-being we get by cutting and splitting wood to warm our home. Wood is our choice, but you may have other choices at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. Whether transforming an existing fireplace or adding something new, a clean-burning wood, gas, or electric fire can have you sitting pretty and cozy by the fire.
Visit Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces at Riverside and East Franklin Avenue in Minneapolis or at woodlandstoves.com. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, since 1977, out of the ordinary products and services to make fire work for you.
Hey AM 950 listeners, my name is JP Darbragosian, and I'm the host of This Queer Book Saved My Life, the show where LGBTQ guests share the queer books that saved their lives in conversation with the authors who wrote them. This Sunday, it's a crossover episode with the delightfully queer pop culture podcast, The Sewers of Paris with Matt Baum. I hope you queer folks and allies can join us as we find connection in this mysterious and beautiful queer world of ours. See you every Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Clear tonight with a low of 58, then more sunshine Tuesday with a high of 83. Fill the hot summer nights with the hottest music in the Twin Cities at Crooner's Supper Club in Fridley. Crooner's is located just north of I-694 off Highway 65. View their schedules and food menus at croonersloungemn.com.
AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Did you get your ticket yet for the Dave Schrader event that we're going to be holding August 18th through 20th at the Anderson House in Wabasha, Minnesota? We still have a few tickets left. We do have a cap on how many tickets we're going to sell. We are getting close to it, but there is still time to get tickets. Just know, though, that the Anderson House itself to stay in during the event is sold out. But we are still selling tickets. There's locations nearby that you can get a room. But just know that the Anderson House itself is sold out. But, you know, I wouldn't let that stop you because it's going to be a jam-packed weekend. Dave Schrader has not investigated this location before, which is going to be really cool. And you get a chance to investigate with Dave as well. So once again, if you haven't gotten a ticket, but you're thinking about it, don't let the fact that the Anderson House, as far as staying there, is sold out. Tickets are still available. You go to charvinity.com, find the event button on there, and it's going to be there. You can get tickets through charvinity.com, and it's going to be a great weekend. We're really looking forward to it. Dave is really looking forward to it, so I think we're going to have a really, really fun time. So definitely, please go check that out. Now we return to our conversation with Alex Matsuo, and we are talking about her latest book, Women of the Paranormal, Vol.1, A Brief History. And, as far as like, say, the first volume, Alex, what are we talking in terms of time spread amongst all of these women in this first volume? Like, how far back does the earliest researcher go in this book?
So it depends. So if we want to include the honorable mention that is that's in the book, then we're going back more to, oh my goodness. So we're probably going more back to the 1600s.
Oh, wow.
But I couldn't verify whether or not the story actually happened, which is why this particular woman is in the honorable mentions. Her full name is a mouthful. It's Antoinette de la Gare de Cholez. That's a very, very extensive name, which is like, good for her. But yeah, so, but the first chapter is, I mentioned her briefly already, Catherine Crowe, and her story goes into the 1800s. So we're looking at 19th century.
Okay. Now, this is probably an unfair question, one you probably get asked all the time. Let's look at just at volume 1. Is there one person that stands out in your mind as making one of the most influential either discoveries or impact or whatever on the field that we may have, like lay people like myself would have no idea about unless we read the book?
I would say I would have to go back to Catherine Crowe. She wrote the book, The Night Side of Nature, and that is the earliest text that we have where the terms poltergeist and doppelganger are brought into English usage. She also describes a whole bunch of phenomena in that book that we would now equate to ESP, precognition, crisis apparitions, NDE, OBE, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, psychical activity, psychokinesis. And she was also one of the, and I say one of because I believe she is the first paranormal investigator as we know paranormal investigating today. Okay. I know a lot of people like to bring up Athena Doris, with that. But again, there's a good chance that Athena Doris that story may have been fiction, kind of like Antoinette. But with Catherine Crowe, she conducted what we would have been doing, what we do now. She wrote a book called Ghosts and Family Legends after Night Side of Nature. And she describes going to this house in Scotland and essentially doing a paranormal investigation. And she brings on a medium. She doesn't tell the medium the truth as to why they're there. She tells the medium that, hey, I'm thinking of buying this house. Let me know what you think. So the medium ends up having these, experiences that are consistent with what's being reported by the homeowner. And they essentially do, like, if they had a recorder with them, they would have been doing an EVP session. So I would say probably Catherine Crowe. She's starting to get a little bit more attention now, which is wonderful. She definitely did something there because Night Side of Nature went through 16 print runs.
Oh, wow.
It was a bestseller. And so the fact that she ended up falling into obscurity for so long is quite mind-blowing. Yeah, when I was researching poltergeists like 15 years ago, I found Night Side of Nature, and but I didn't realize that Catherine Crowe was essentially swept under the rug, and I was really surprised that more people didn't know who she was. When I'm looking at this, I'm like, the earliest evidence that we have that, poltergeist, like this is the earliest like English-based text that we have on this now, like this household name in the paranormal.
Wow, that's actually really interesting. And we are talking with Alex Matsuo, and we're talking about her latest book, Women of the Paranormal Vol.1, A Brief History. When you did your research and going through the history of these women, did you find any like evidence of outright like sexism, like anything that came from any of these women, where like it took a while for them to get through about the research because of them being women and not men?
Yeah, I did run into that a few times. One of the ones that really stands out to me is Ada Goodrich Freer. If anyone is familiar with, Harry Price had his controversy with Borley Rectory. Ada Goodrich Freer would be Balachin House. And there's quite a few things that could have, that, she wasn't exactly a saint in this situation either, but what I found interesting was she got heavily discredited with the Balachin House investigation. And so essentially what happened was Balachin House was rented for 3 months so that the Society for Psychical Research could come and go and investigate. And Ada was the house hostess for it. And while she was there, she heard footsteps, thumps, and bangs. She saw disembodied dog paws. She held a Ouija board session there. But since people were going in and out, there was an attendant that wrote to the Times, which was the local newspaper, that basically debunked everything. But one of the things that really infuriated me when I read this was whoever the writer was to the newspaper said that SPR made the mistake of appointing her to oversee the investigation simply because she is a lady.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute, hang on. Did I read that right? So it was because she had her duties to attend to. She was unfit to carry out the actual work of investigating. And that letter instigated so much drama. SPR ended up publicly distancing themselves from her. She either resigned or she was let go, but she did tell people she resigned, and then she went off to go do her own thing. And she was caught being fraudulent a few times. But to me, like, that's what should have been focused on, not because she was a woman. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, okay. I get it. Yeah. So let's go forward now. And you have a good, finger on the pulse, if you will, of paranormal current state. Just a very general question. Mm-hmm. Do you think that there is sexism currently in the paranormal field?
Unfortunately, yes. I've experienced a little bit of it myself. I've also seen it in paranormal media still. Paranormal media is getting a bit better, but I've always said that the paranormal entertainment industry is about 10 years behind Hollywood. So we're starting to get a little bit more diversity there. There's been a couple shows that have featured more women as co-hosts. I've yet to see a show that has a woman as like the main star, the main talent, which, is a bummer. But I think how the entertainment business handles it is also reflected in the field. I still see event posters that are very male heavy, which is interesting. And I've experienced it personally myself, where I've been part of an event where, a man will be featured on the poster as a featured guest speaker. I'm also a featured guest speaker, but my photo's not there. And he's there because he's had one TV appearance. Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm racking up about 4, and I have way more followers than that person does. And I have to say, it's a bit disheartening to see that when it's like you work so hard to reach some sort of like level of like, hey, I've done some work here, putting out books and making content, and then and I know there's a running joke in the event circuit that you just need to be on TV once and you can be on a poster for an event.
Yeah.
But if you're a woman, it seems like you have to work a little bit harder to get there, which is unfortunate. So I mainly see it amongst the event planning with a lot of paracons and paranormal events. And I see it in the field too. There's especially depending on the location that's being investigated, it's, you shouldn't be here, or this is too intense for you. And it comes from a good place. But I'm sitting here like, scoot over. I'm going to sit next to you in the basement that's supposedly haunted by a demon. Let's do this,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, in some areas, it feels like it's not only the paranormal television that's 10 years behind Hollywood. Some areas I have seen firsthand is about 15 years behind just the rest of the country in terms of any kind of equality.
Mm-hmm.
I think that goes beyond women as well. I think any sort of diversity of color or gender or anything. I think in what I've seen, I kind of feel like that's where we're at.
Yeah. And I've also experienced some really intense misogyny on social media too, mostly from nameless, faceless individuals. But it's still disheartening too, especially when, it's a great opportunity for our male allies to step up and say that behavior is unacceptable.
Yeah.
But then they're quiet because they don't want to tick someone off, or they don't want to make their friend look bad. And I think our male allies, specifically white male allies, really need to step up and say, hey, that behavior is not acceptable. Or even these paranormal celebrities going to these events, asking these event planners, hey, what are you doing to include more diversity into your lineup? Just things like that there's so many ways to be an ally without ruffling feathers. And it would be nice to see more of that,
Absolutely. I don't think it would take much either. Let's do this. Let's take our final break. When we come back, we're going to finish our conversation with Alex Matsuo. We're going to continue talking about Women of the Paranormal, Volume 1, A Brief History. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
It's 6:42 p.m. Time for Steve Plotto and his son Dylan to do the dishes. They talk about everything from the yuckiness of girls to the awesomeness of his soccer team. Sometimes they don't talk at all. Then, hey! The dreaded splash fight. It's Dad o'clock, and it's the best time of the day. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
You hear a lot about Rudy Luther Toyota's hybrid cars, but maybe you're asking yourself, are they worth it? Let me say from experience, absolutely. I have a Toyota Sienna hybrid, and the proof is in the gas tank. Before my hybrid, I was filling up my tank once a week. Now it's consistently every 2 weeks. I did the math, and my hybrid is saving me over $1,000 every year. And the Toyota hybrids are some of the most stylish and comfortable vehicles you'll ever drive. Now's the time to get a Toyota hybrid. Set up a time to test drive one today at Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Hi, this is Laura. Listen to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. or anytime via podcast. Our individual health is connected to the health of each other and connected to the health of the earth. We know the problems with the dominant food system: climate change, deadening soils, nitrates in the water, factory farming, injustice, concentration of wealth. How do we both as individuals and as a community step up and support a living food system which honors the earth? Tune to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. and remember to support your independent farmers.
Whoa. The moment my son saw a redwood tree.
It's huge!
Is the moment I knew that for him,
You can't even see the top of that thing.
even the sky has no limit.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forests near you and discover cool things to do when you go. Your moment is out there. Find it at discovertheforest.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Paul Metza, inviting you to listen to the Wall of Power Radio Hour every weekend on AM 950. We are on at 6 p.m. on Saturday. We feature artists, musicians, raconteurs, private detectives, and more. 6 p.m. Saturday night on AM 950.
Wall of Power
I'm Candy Brothel. I'm Elizabeth Sullivan. And I'm Kelly Wagner. Energize yourself with AM 950's Sunday Shine Radio from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Sunday Shine Radio radiates wellness, consciousness, and curiosity.
Join me, Candy Brothel, for Green Tea Conversations at 10 a.m. Exploring Sovereignty with Elizabeth at 11 a.m.
And the Being Curious Show at noon.
Our lineup focuses on igniting your own self-discovery and personal wellness. Tune in every Sunday for Sunday Shine Radio from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
And let us guide you on an inspirational journey each week.
And join us tomorrow on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We're going to be talking with Daniel Roberge about the paranormal app, the EchoVox, and other paranormal apps that he has created. I have always been on the fence about paranormal apps myself, but I've been using the EchoVox for years. That's a different level. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. Wednesday, we're doing one-question readings with psychic medium Char Savoy. It's always good to have Char on. Thursday, author Anna Maria Manilow talking about her book, The Night Visitants. And Friday, we invite back Sam Beltrusis as we talk to him about his new book, Fueled by Fear, Lessons Learned While Chasing Ghosts. I hope you will all join us for that on over the course of the week. We have a great week of programming coming up here, but we're finishing our conversation with Alex Matsuo as we are talking about her latest book, Women of the Paranormal, Vol.1, A Brief History. Now, I put a link on my page, Alex, ghostboxradio.com, where people could get the book, but I put the Amazon link down there. Do you prefer us using a different link? Because you mentioned you had the Etsy shop as well.
Yeah, so the Etsy shop is for signed copies. You can also do womenoftheparanormal.com. That takes you to the page on my website with the links to Amazon, Goodreads, and the signed copies on Etsy. So Amazon or womenoftheparanormal.com is fine. Just, it depends on what people want from the book. If they want the copy from Amazon, it's all good. If they would like a signed copy, they can reach out to me.
And who wouldn't want a signed copy? That's what I'm thinking. Who wouldn't want a signed copy? You're just like, I don't know.
People who don't want to pay shipping.
Who doesn't want a signed copy? Well, maybe those who don't want signed copies, I guess. I don't know. So as we're finishing up, I wanted to talk a little bit about the writing process because, you've been doing this for a while now. You've been putting out a lot of very impressive material, a lot of good books, and you write. Over the course of this period of time, and it's a lofty question, but what would you say is the number one thing that really stuck out to you that you learned over the course of writing for all this time?
I have learned that there's always something to write about. We still don't have all the answers in the paranormal, and that's not just saying like from a spiritual aspect, but there's still so much information out there that we've yet to discover, and a lot of research, legacy, stories have been buried from time, and there's always something new to explore. And even if it's a topic that's been covered before, that topic hasn't been covered by you or me and doesn't have your perspective or my perspective. I think there's always a fresh look at something, even at something, familiar that we've been looking at over and over again for centuries. I think there's still new things to learn.
Yeah, I can get that. Yeah. Is there anything that you've written about that you think that it's time to go back and revisit?
Yeah, so one of them is The Haunted Actor. That was the first book I ever put out.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote that based off of my my thesis for grad school. It's a very academic, text-heavy, research-heavy book. And I was still, I guess you could call a baby ghost hunter back then. I mean, I started my team like 3 years before I wrote that book. So I was still pretty well. I was around, but I hadn't had a chance to talk to other people about their experiences, and I learned new stories since then that I feel like it's time to go back to the haunted actor and see like, hey, can anything be updated, or did I discover anything new? Or is there anything in there outdated? And I can already think of one where I make a case about tulpas haunting theaters, but I shouldn't have used the word tulpa. I should have used more like thought forms or egregores. So it's like I need to go back and do some cleanup there.
Sure, absolutely. What about looking at the future? Obviously, you have more volumes. You mentioned that you think you have about 2 volumes left for Women of the Paranormal. Are they all going to be called like A Brief History, or each one going to have like a different subtitle to it?
I think they're all going to have a different subtitle, and that's going to come from me looking at, I have an idea of who's going to be in volume 2, but then I'm going to have to look at it holistically and see, like, is there a common thread between all of these women? Is there a common theme that keeps popping up? So, I mean, I have a lot of, I also have more women in parapsychology in volume 2 as well. So It's going to be an interesting mix between like parapsychologists, mediums, cryptozoologists, and ufologists. And maybe a few paranormal investigators too. But I think it's going to be a little bit more heavy in those categories. So I think it's going to definitely have a different subtitle there. And I'm looking forward to discovering it.
Well, and I'm wondering if there's stuff that you've like information you've collected that you're just like, I cannot wait for me to be able to share this with everyone. Is there anything in there, you don't have to give it away, but is there anything like that you're just like, I cannot wait for people to read such and such piece of this book?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a few. And I guess on a sadder note too, there are a couple of women that are, I've written their chapters, but they have yet to pass. And one of the criteria to be in the book is you had to have passed, because your story is over. Your story's over. So to speak, there's nothing new to be, to be discussed in that sort of way. So I do have a couple of women waiting in the wings, and I hope they wait in the wings as long as possible. Unfortunately, illness will eventually take them from us. But I'm really excited to be able to tell their stories. And I'm telling it now, even as, since they're alive, but, to have them actually on paper in a book, like, hey, this is what this woman did in the 21st century. And, she was totally kicking butt and doing such a wonderful job. And then of course I have a couple of parapsychologists that I was like, oh, wow, you did that experiment? Cool. It's like, I can't wait to tell that story.
That's going to be really interesting, especially as, I think it's going to give such a great framework and such a good picture of an area that may have been pretty much kind of left behind a little bit. I mean, that's what I really love about these books, is that you're giving them their time to shine, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And really also, when I can, I'm trying to give these other women who are still alive and still working their time to shine as well. Especially with the ones that I know are probably going to be added to a book in the future. But they're no longer able to work. So they actually were able to review their own chapter and give me their feedback, which was oddly beautiful, sad and beautiful, but it's nice that it's going to be one of the few chapters where that woman actually contributed to her own chapter and was able to tell her story. Otherwise, it's like what I ran into with Linda Godfrey and Rosemary.
I'm going to cut you off there because we're running out of time. Mm-hmm. To get Alex's book, go to Amazon, Women of the Paranormal Volume 1. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, Minnesota, it's Brad Friedman, host of the Bradcast. You're listening to AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice